first phone.
Okay, I think that's you.
Oh. Are we live?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Just don't think. Hello everyone,
Ready?
we're really sorry we're late. A few technical difficulties.
But
Here now.
we seem to have it sorted. So here we are at Lucy's house. This is Lucy Gray, sculptor. We're on the shores of Loch Etive, near Tynalt in Argyll. And I'm Leonie, and I'm a writer. And tonight we're presenting our collaborative project, Watershed, for the first time.
Housekeeping wise, I call her BD, and I'm a bit nervous, so I'll just call her BD if that's all right with everyone. But she's here. Yeah. We're going to do 5 sculptures, we hope, and just a little bit about them to give you an idea of our working practice.
So everything begins outdoors with us. We have spent, and we are still spending a lot of time outside together. And that's where we begin and where we end, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And this is the first. This is called Shock, and this is actually our first collaborative.
2 years. So we've been working on this project for 2 years, working together.
Yes. And so shall I say
Yes, do.
So this is Shock, and I created this in response to learning that my stepfather was going to die, and I wanted to just capture that horrific moment when everything's broken, when the shell is closed, your exterior is hardened and safe, and your soft interior is secret and yours. And when you get a shock like that, everything changes. So I've built up sort of earthy striations so if you imagine the shell closed, and then you get the news of the shock, and then you have the tender exposed interior of the object. And so I really wanted to get a sort of slightly unbalanced, a sort of feeling of disquiet and shock.
And can you say a little about the bowl? Because they use that word bowl in the poem.
Okay, that's a good answer.
So it's B-O-L-E. Bowl.
And a bowl is what you call, when you're building up, this is traditionally gessoed, and it's what you do when you're preparing to gild, only it's a naked surface. And you put on 7 layers of gesso, you smooth those very smooth, and then you put on the clay, which when it's on is called the bowl. And generally, traditionally, it's a yellow and then 2 layers of red, and it's slightly translucent. I've used yellow and then white on top to give the fleshy overtones.
And this is the first sculpture that we worked on together, and I, in my wisdom, took it home to my writing box to spend time with it, to get acquainted with it, and get into the writing. And I had it for a few weeks, and my writing box was leaking, and it got damaged. So needless to say, I never took another sculpture home.
And you got a terrible shock, I think.
And I got shocked. So the sculpture is called Shock, and the poem is called Shock. So originally it was a very long poem, and I wrote about your process of grieving and being with your stepfather when he was dying, and it was very visceral and physical and very intimate. And actually, as time went on, I took that element out, and we have come down to the actual process, which we both think actually speaks of the love and care and attention. Shock. The body of friendship changes with the terrible realization that someone is going to die. A smashed shell cannot be sealed. Painstakingly, she prepares the space for the flesh that's missing, warms rabbit skin glue, measures calcium carbonate. It paints like double cream, ghosts to a hard base. She beeswax polishes the bowl until it is the translucence of breath.
I think that's very beautiful.
So that's Shock. And next We're going to look at mortar. Quite silent.
Yeah, that's all right.
So this piece is called Mortar, as in pestle and mortar. It's about our joint creativity, or it's about shared creativity in general. And this piece began for both of us on a long walk beside a river.
And so I had to talk about that.
Yeah, please. Talk about the materials.
This is a bit of burr oak, and I love the fact that usually with bits of wood I'm altering things, but I love the fact that you had a sort of angle of a disquiet angle here, and I love the fact that it looks like it's an object that you could pass round as an object of ceremony. And then these are water gilded arrows, traditionally water gilded, and
with moon gold.
This is Renaissance gold. No,
Okay.
it's the other one's moon gold. And the small things emerging, small, I don't know what you call them. Nodules, gilded nodules, which represent creativity and the Holy Spirit for my Christian faith. And these are also it's sort of the Holy Spirit. You know that when you feel really creative, you get that moment and it's almost painful, like arrows flinging into flesh. And with the roots, these are a combination of roots. I glean on the walks. Whenever we're walking, I'm picking bits and pieces up. And so that's my collection of roots, sort of describing how everything's inside out. And it's all, the roots are the inspiration, but on the other hand, they're supposed to be the foundation, but everything's upside down. And I quite often have in my work an absolutely horizontal plane for things to spark off. It sort of sparks off, it ignites the chaos. And if you don't have a horizontal plane, it can look like a mess rather than chaos. You have the organised bits for the chaos to happen.
Thanks, Lucy. I just want to say, so Lucy is a committed Christian and I'm a confirmed animist. So that brings a really interesting tension or added dimension to our work, which I think we both really enjoyed.
Yes, definitely.
So, this is mortar. Bark of boiling water, spilling the shared mind. Reach of roots divining the availability of rain. The inside out of everything, stung wide open.
It really captures that sting.
So we're going to look at lark song. So shall I take that?
Can you take that one?
We've got really squeaky chairs.
Sorry. Chairs.
Lark song. Do you want to say what inspired that?
This is
something we haven't talked about is how with each piece there's a slightly different process. So with the first sculpture, the poetry came only from the sculpture. With the second piece, with mortar, it was a very much doing it together work. And again, this is another one that you did before the poem.
Yes. But inspired by the same thing. And I think quite often our work is not always a literal joining of themes, but it's the sense of visceral connection to landscape is the thing where we meet in the middle. So this is called Lark Song and was inspired by Vaughan Williams' Lark Ascending. And this is ivy driftwood with, this is the moon gold, traditionally water gilded moon gold. And I wanted to get the sense of the circular, the continuous link of the lark song rising. But it's also very important to me how pieces relate to the base. They don't always have bases, but due to gravity, they need bases, and I think the bases are really important proportionately to the sculpture and how they sit on the base as well. So it's not just a means of anchor, it is a part of the work. And the fact that this is very horizontal, if seen from the side, that's my straight horizontal.
So the
vertical, isn't it?
vertical. So the lark in question is the skylark, which has this amazing vertical flight, and it sings on the ascent. And it's actually endangered, but we're very lucky we've got lots around here.
Would you like to
Yeah.
read your writing?
Okay. Lark song. Honeyed slipknot of branches unravels me, invites the sky, my eye, into the dopamine hurl of you, till my lips fold rooted syllables for only you and your hill to hear. And look, we've got more of these nodules, which I love. They pop up all over the place in your work.
Yeah, they pop up where it's a Holy Spirit thing, I think. So they're not on everything, but they are on.
And it's a very interesting process. Can you say a little bit about what each nodule?
Well, those are actually the nodules that I use quite a lot because they're just the right size and they're just big enough that I can drill into the end to secure it into the piece, because it's really important things don't fall apart. They've got to look like they could fall apart in a breath, but they can't fall apart. So found a source for children's hairbrushes, wooden children's hairbrushes, and it's untreated wood. You have to have untreated wood when you're gilding on it because the foundation layers have to absorb into the wood. Otherwise, it cracks off over time as the wood expands.
And it's 10 layers, isn't it?
7 layers.
7 layers. Okay. And then the gold. Then the gold. And then the gold.
But it looks, if you look at that compared to something that's painted gold, these are alive. They have a depth and a translucence and a sort of strange ethereal solidity, which I love.
I love the attention that each one gets. So we're going on to Just Hold Me There.
I tell you what, yes, Alex. Take that.
So this is a piece that I wrote the poem first, and you read the poem and were inspired to.
Very inspired
to do. So the poem itself came about on a late winter walking through bog myrtle before there were any leaves, and I came across 2 owl feathers, 2 barn owl feathers suspended in the branches, and I was really moved by that moment, something around the precariousness of the moment, and I dropped down instinctively just to spend time with these feathers, and this short poem came out of those moments. I think for me it's a lot about longing. Just hold me there.
Just going to go slightly closer, so you're going to hold it. So you're going to hold it a bit closer so one can see.
That's right. Yeah.
There.
Just hold me there. They fold my knees like a tomahawk. 2 breast feathers, barn owl, spooning on the bog myrtle, allowing the breeze to move their veins. With aching shins, I straighten, away from that restive intimacy. Hope for catkins in bud, my own height, to snag my hair. Just hold me there.
Love that. And what I've done with this piece is tried not to do. I've tried to feel it. Tried to feel that moment and tried to replicate the moment, I suppose. And it's the first piece I've done that you hold, and it's set off a series of pieces that you hold. And it's really interesting when you're holding something, you're in the moment of the piece. You're not concentrating on anything else or the surface, and it's a precious thing, and you're holding it, and that's a very special moment, I think. And
say something about the weight, which
the weight of it.
really intrigued by.
I hadn't realised how important it was. Of course, when you lift something, this isn't the weight of the stone; it's the weight of a bended knee. So it's the weight when you bend. Yes, and it's really interesting how that affects your experience of the object. The weight actually affects how you perceive the piece. And I think people are, because it looks like it's stone, that's built up with layers and layers of gesso. But I pigmented the gesso, so you see that dark colour. There's the obviously underlying layers because you can't have it too thin. But then I built up the varying layers to make it look like mossy, licheny rock.
Right,
and another consideration when you're doing something to be held is people with rings, that's going to slightly scratch the surface. So you can't just, the feathers are actually painted on, but the branches are incised and pigmented throughout, which means that if over the years it erodes, you're still left with the same stone that you had to start with. And it'll add to it rather than remove it.
Great, thanks, Lucy. So we're going to the last sculpture now, and we have to move to get there because it's too big to bring here. So,
Technical.
I'm going to go.
Just move.
Just while you guys are doing that, I'm just going to check because I don't think the comments are enabled. Oh no, they are actually. Oh, that's good. That's good news. So is it on top of that box? Is that the right height, or do you want it up a bit? Yeah, good.
Yeah,
perfect.
Great.
Where you go?
Thank you. Oh yes, and swivel that.
Yeah,
around.
swivel that. So, yeah. Is that too glary?
No, that's fine.
That's fine.
So this is an eagle. The poem is called Mountain Ash. In Greek mythology, there's a story where an eagle's blood creates the mountain ash or round tree, the same thing, creates the round berries, and its fallen feathers create the leaves. The round tree is a tree of protection and guardianship in Celtic mythology. And that's very much what this eagle means to you.
Because in my work, in my Christian faith, the eagle is the holder of your soul. And so it is your sense of place.
And belonging.
And it's a wonderful bird.
And this poem is actually written about a very specific round tree that I go to again and again, and you spent some time with it. And it's got a real sense of withstanding and bearing witness. Mountain ash. Was it a feather landing or a drop of eagle's blood that began you here in this strong spot above a Harn pool in the upper tilt of Glenkinglas, where you witness, witness, witness?
Thank you. I think this is a really good example of where our work really meets, because we take the landscape and we take the things that we take from the landscape are the same embodied things, but they're embodied differently. So with you it's the tree, with me it's the eagle, but we're talking about the same response to landscape.
So I think we might have questions and answers now. Do we have anything else we need to say?
Did your book?
Oh, yes.
Book.
My book Marum, which was published by Sandstone Press in March, is available in the studio. If you come and visit the exhibition, it's available here, and it's also available online. But please come to the exhibition, because actually reading the words and holding the sculptures in real life is very, very different from any screen experience. So, shall I lean in and see if I can see anything? Or do you want
There
to
should be
help?
so we got some questions in the chat here. So let's have a look. So Francis Ainsley wants to know, did the wood come from Ben King glass?
That's a really good question. And the answer is, generally with me, it's not too important where the woods actually come from, as long as it's got the same sense of place within it. So I glean wherever I go. So when I went to Crete, there was an amazing succulent plant on the edge of the road that had died, and it was writhing in agony of dry death. And I took that home with me in the suitcase, chucked most of the other stuff out, and I've used that in something, not actually in any of these sculptures.
But some of the wood, so the heather roots, some were from
They were from King glass.
And quite a lot of the wood has been washed up on Loch Essen, on the shores of Loch Essen.
Yes, and a lot of it is from Scotland, but that's not necessarily an important thing. And the other thing is, I only take fallen wood. I don't ever cut anything down or destroy anything that's living. I glean.
Lovely. Okay. So Ewan Monroe has got a question about the holding aspect of some of the sculptures you showed. Mm-hmm. He wanted to know how that might travel into some of your future work. If you have any more plans for it, I guess, is what he's asking.
That's another question. Yes, I'd say I love the way the words and the holdingness are together. It makes it more a sense of, it takes you to a place that if you don't hold something, you don't go. And I'm enjoying playing with the weight of things. So there's another sculpture in the exhibition which is weighted uncomfortably. It's heavier on one side than the other, so you're slightly uncomfortable holding it. You want to sort of move it, but it won't move. And I like that idea, playing with the sense of people's presence with the object. Yeah,
I mean, in both our works, we talk about this a lot, but we're both really interested in physiological response to either whether it's language or seeing a sculpture or touching a sculpture. How does it feel in your body, and the emotional responses. So actually holding them is a whole new exciting dimension.
As is including the words and how people perceive those, and I should think we'll move forward with presenting them and getting people. So with the current exhibition, we have plinths with the words underneath the sculpture that you have to lift, or you're invited to lift to read the words. And that works, but I'm sure there's a lot of other ways that you can introduce words in it.
It's exciting to
explore. It is.
Brilliant. So there's a question here from Dee McKenna, and I think they want to know, how does your collaboration extend your practices? I don't know if you guys feel
massively.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about there's something about, we both are quite solitary in our work. However, we spend this time outdoors together, and often in silence. But certainly for me, my observations and my listening abilities and my experiencing is deepened by having you there.
Absolutely.
And so in terms of the inspiration, it's intensified by collaborating. And then there's always subsequent, we go off and do our own thing, and then we come together again, and come together again, and come together again. And it's very. It's always interesting and always exciting.
And yes, and sometimes it's a bit gritty, but in a good way. That
So yeah, we enjoy it.
grit that makes the pearl. It's a good grit, and it's a very. I mean, I'm very solitary worker normally, and I haven't come across this sort of. And it's your presence in the landscape is highlighted, and I think also because we know each other very well, we can be alone when we're together. So I don't feel that I'm necessarily, walking with a companion. I'm just being.
I think we're both feeling very lucky.
That's really good. Yeah, I think it's something kind of touches a little bit on something I'd like to know more about, which is like how you guys actually work together. So like what that process, how does that actually physically work? Like you talked a little bit about you taking one of Lucy's sculptures back with you to the shed, and that was that great story about it. Things dripping on it. I think that's brilliant. But just is that the only extent of it? Is there swapping of material, or you talked about walking together a little bit?
Well, it starts outside, always starts in the landscape. I'd say that's the roots of our inspiration.
Yeah.
And then it's varied, and we're very much learning organically, I'd say. And if it feels right, which sounds like a very flippant thing, but it's not. It's we spend a lot of time trying to be present within ourselves and get that balance right.
And in terms of time, it's very elastic. So we don't set ourselves or each other particularly strong deadlines, but stuff just keeps happening all the time. And then we'll get together, and if we've had a dormant spell, we'll get together, and then the time's right for everything to sort of bubble up and happen. And we've been working on the writing together, looking at editing together, and that's really fun, sharing that experience.
And I think the way we work is we're both very confident in each other's intuitive.
Yeah, we're very straight with each other, very straight, and we can hear anything, which is brilliant.
I think that's really good. That's really helpful in being able to work together
we
productively.
Absolutely
move forward.
And we never have to worry about not hurting each other's feelings. Obviously, we take care, but when it comes to the work,
we're both trying to be ourselves.
Straight,
and when we be ourselves together, it brings an extra dimension.
Yeah.
And it is organic. We will change. Over time, in good and exciting ways.
Great. So Susan McMillan's just asked a really interesting question. How do you choose location to work in? I think that's maybe something quite, I don't know, like we live in a very rural location, and maybe that's quite like fuels what your guys work together. Maybe like say a bit about that.
Well, this exhibition is called Watershed, and it's everything generally is inspired from the land around Loch Etive. It's the watershed, and we've been to several places, and I think we go to places and we walk, and if a body of work comes out of it, that's fantastic. And in fact, I don't think it ever hasn't come out of it. I don't think we've ever been somewhere where we haven't.
So we just go exploring.
But I'd be perfectly happy to go somewhere and find. It's in Argyll at the moment, but I'd very much like Bede to come to Skye, because I've been doing artist in residency with the artist Geraldine Van Hinstra, and Skye is so amazing, and there's so much landscape, and it would be difficult because we've worked in Argyll, basically been entirely Argyll based. So I'd say that's our.
But it's been even during lockdown, it's been interesting because we've brought it in. We've always been pretty local, but now we've brought it really local, and I'm personally loving that. The closer to home you can come.
Yeah.
And
it's an amazing place to live. There's masses on our doorstep.
Great.
So I'm aware of time.
Yeah, I think should we say we've got one more question
that
I think Deirdre really wants to ask, and then we can wrap it up. So Deirdre wants to know, can you tell us about the title of Bedrock?
Oh, it was Watershed.
Watershed.
She's asked about bedrock.
Oh, that's another.
That's
think
another
that's another-
project which will be in the future, but it's on hold at the moment.
But we found that we spend a lot of time in riverbeds, and there's something. Yeah, the riverbeds in this part of the world change with the rainfall really quickly. So there'll be a full river in spate, and then a few hours later the level will be completely dropped and you can access all the rock. So we like that metaphor as being the sensitive response to living, and how quickly things go up and down and what's revealed. So
Yes,
that's
and how that reflects
yeah.
our lives.
Brilliant. Okay. Digi's just asked if you could tell us a bit more about Watershed in that case. And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so the river beds, and then the watershed is the area of land where the water from the surrounding hills flow in, and in this instance it's located, but we are looking at extending to other areas. But there's a sense of holding. It's dynamic. The water itself changes.
So water is such a powerful thing, and it's so much part of the land up here.
Yeah.
I think, and yes, and I suppose the watershed from the land is our work.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. That's been really brilliant.
Thanks, Team Technology.
Yeah,
Thanks, Team
no,
Technology. You cracked
don't
us
worry.
in the end.
Got there in the end. Yeah, sorry for the late start.
And thanks to anyone who's joined us this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
spending time with us.
Yeah.
When and where is exhibition?
Oh, good point.
Oh, yeah, that might be
The
a good thing to
exhibition
mention.
is on tomorrow, so Saturday, Sunday and Monday, and then the following Saturday and Sunday from 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock.
As part of Art Map.
As part of art, and if you look on Instagram, Art Map Argyle, you will see a map, and we're venue 3, along with you and Munro Photography as venue 2. And if you come, you can play on the Forest Symphony, which is an interactive sculpture. It's called the Symphony, sorry, not the Forest Symphony, that was the first one. But it's built around Beattie's writing, and it is a very exciting thing to do, but too complicated to show in this format. But we hope to be having a short film made of it that we will release Argyle timing quite soon.
Fantastic.
But please come along to the exhibition, because a lot of the sculptures are to be experienced, to be held, and there's nothing like being there.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for that. That was really good. I just wanted to say quickly before we go, thank you so much to you two for coming together and doing this, because I know it's something that you've not really done before, and it was all a bit, had a few technical faults, but it went really well in the end, and it's really lovely to hear more about the work that you're making. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who came and listened. And yeah, we can probably leave it there.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.